Emma had always been shy. At 26, she preferred the company of books to people, and the thought of going to a doctor's appointment filled her with anxiety. But when she found a lump in her breast, she knew she couldn't ignore it. After weeks of putting it off, she finally mustered the courage to schedule a screening. The clinic was sleek and modern, a far cry from the small-town doctor's office she was used to. As she sat in the waiting room, clutching her purse tightly, she couldn't help but feel out of place. The other patients seemed so confident, so sure of themselves, while Emma felt like she was shrinking into her chair. "Emma?" a nurse called, snapping her out of her thoughts. Emma stood up, her heart racing, and followed the nurse down a hallway. They stopped in front of a door, and the nurse gestured for her to go in. "Dr. Carter will be with you shortly," the nurse said with a reassuring smile. Emma nodded and stepped inside. The room was bright and sterile, with a large examination table and a computer on a desk. She sat down on the edge of the table, her hands trembling. A few minutes later, the door opened and a man walked in. He was young, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and a confident stride. He was dressed in a white lab coat, but Emma couldn't help but notice how handsome he was. "Hi, I'm Dr. Carter," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "You must be Emma." Emma nodded, her cheeks flushing. "Yes, that's me." Dr. Carter smiled and sat down on a stool, rolling it closer to her. "I know this can be nerve-wracking, but you're in good hands. Let's start with a few questions, okay?" Emma nodded again, her throat too dry to speak. Dr. Carter asked her about her medical history, the lump she had found, and any symptoms she was experiencing. As they talked, Emma found herself relaxing. There was something about Dr. Carter's calm demeanor that put her at ease. When it was time for the physical examination, Emma's anxiety returned. She had never been comfortable with her body, and the thought of someone, especially someone as attractive as Dr. Carter, seeing her in such a vulnerable state, was almost too much to bear. "I know this is uncomfortable," Dr. Carter said gently, sensing her hesitation. "But it's important. I'll be as quick and professional as possible, okay?" Emma took a deep breath and nodded. She lay back on the table, her heart pounding as Dr. Carter began the examination. True to his word, he was quick and professional, but Emma couldn't help but feel a strange connection between them. There was something in the way he looked at her, not just as a patient, but as a person. After the examination, Dr. Carter sat back down and looked at Emma with a serious expression. "The lump is concerning," he said. "I'd like to schedule a biopsy to be sure, but I want you to know that we're going to take care of you no matter what." Emma's heart sank, but Dr. Carter's words gave her a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she whispered. Dr. Carter hesitated for a moment, then said, "I know this is unprofessional, but would you like to get a coffee after your appointment? I think it might help to talk more in a less clinical setting." Emma was stunned. Was he asking her out? I don't know," she stammered. Dr. Carter smiled. "No pressure, just thought it might help." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay, coffee sounds good." Over coffee, Emma learned that Dr. Carter, whose first name was Alex, was not just a talented doctor, but also a self-made millionaire. He had started a biotech company in his 20s and used the profits to fund free clinics for underserved communities. His passion for helping others was evident in everything he said, and Emma found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't expected. As they talked, Emma realized that Alex was just as nervous as she was. Despite his success, he was humble and kind, and he seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. By the end of their conversation, Emma felt a connection she hadn't felt in years. A few days later, Emma returned to the clinic for her biopsy. Alex was there every step of the way, holding her hand and reassuring her. When the results came back negative, Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. "I'm so glad everything's okay," Alex said, his eyes filled with genuine happiness. "Me too," Emma replied, smiling for the first time in weeks. Over the next few months, Emma and Alex grew closer. They went on dates, shared their dreams, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. Emma's shyness began to fade as she realized that Alex loved her for who she was, not for what she could offer. One evening, as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, Alex turned to Emma and took her hand. "I know this is fast," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "but I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will."